So I was having a conversation the other day with my mindset coach, Dr. Jeff Spencer, and this guy's like coached over 50 gold medalists. This guy's incredible, and I was asking some questions about like the pursuit of perfection and stuff like that. And so I wrote down these 6 points that he was talking about that I wanted to make sure I got them to you. And he was talking about how you want to be principled and you don't want to be focused on perfection. And the first thing he talked about, he says, know what you stand for. And I was thinking about that, and it was really key because we've all heard before, if you don't stand for anything, you'll fall for anything, right? And so what are your standards, and what do you stand for? I mean, it's literally, it's like if something happens in your presence and you tolerate it, that becomes your standard, right? And so I think that's one of the things that's important about not trying to be perfect, but really be principled. And really figuring out what are your principles and what are your kind of guiding, your guiding lines or guiding light for you. And the second thing he talked about, he says, know your strengths and weaknesses. And I think a lot of people, they give too much airtime to their weaknesses. Like, oh, I got to shore up my weaknesses. Well, yeah, but we all have strengths too. And the most successful people in the world, they focus on their strengths and make them even better. They don't even really pay any attention to their weaknesses. And so once again, if you're striving for perfection, here's what's happening. You're focusing on your weaknesses and you're trying to shore them up and trying to make them better because you're focused on your weaknesses, right? And so it's too much. It's hard, to try to be perfect, right? It's too much anxious, and we've all been there before. I mean, it's like even if you finish and you think you did a perfect job, you still don't think it's perfect, right? It's still like this empty, hollow victory that has too much anxiousness in it, right? And then the other thing is, number 3 is flow with life's twists and turns. We know that success is not a straight line. You're gonna zig and zag and go to the left and the right, and sometimes it's cyclical. And we have to understand there's not just one straight shot. I mean, even when a rocket or the space shuttle goes to the moon, it doesn't just go straight up against gravity. It actually goes around the Earth several times and then gets flung out into orbit. Right? It's not just straight, okay? It's a cycle. It's zigzagging, all types of stuff, okay? And the other thing is, the fourth thing is turn adversity into benefit. I think T.D. Jakes said it best. He says you want to take your misery and turn it into your ministry, right? We've all had things that have happened to us that we weren't really happy with. We've all had things that just didn't work out. I mean, I heard the other day that they were trying to create a synthetic material for the war. This is World War II. And they end up trying to work this material that was supposed to be kind of like rubber, but it wouldn't hold its form, right? But that rubber that didn't hold its form ended up being the invention for silly putty that sold over 300 million eggs of silly putty. And so it's kind of weird, like the adversity actually turned into a benefit. It was a side business, right? And so what adversity has happened to you that you could turn into a benefit? I mean, heck, all of our stories, all of our adversity that we've gone through that have pretty much made up who we are today is what can benefit you. Because I think that by sharing our story and our hardships and our challenges of what we've been through, that inspires other people to get through theirs, right? And I think that's what's so great about being in this world today with video and with social media, is that we can get out there and be a mouthpiece and share a message or messages and share our story and really get a chance to inspire people. Even if you don't think it does, I'm telling you it does. And so make sure you're cognizant of that and think about how could you turn your adversity, got to get it right, adversity into benefit, all right? And then number 5 is establish boundaries. Let's say that, you want to get a good night's sleep, okay? And so one of your boundaries needs to be like, okay, I need to stop taking phone calls at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock at night, or shut all my technology off at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock at night. That's a boundary for you, right? Or that's just one example. There's several different boundaries that we could talk about here, but you have to start setting boundaries, because if you want to be this principled person, not perfect, but principled person that guides you to your success in life, then you have to have these boundaries, or else, once again, you're taking phone calls at 2 o'clock in the morning. Now, if you got some project that you have to get done the next day, or you're in a major deadline, well, obviously you might have to forego that, okay, which kind of leads me into my last piece here. Number 6 is modify as needed. You might have to modify a boundary. You might have to shift it over 30 minutes or, renegotiate that boundary if it doesn't work for you anymore. Okay, kind of like, my 2-year-old son. I mean, he doesn't need a pacifier anymore, right? It doesn't work for him anymore. Plus, we don't want him to have it anymore, right? Okay, and so this rule that Dr. Jeff told me about. He told me about the 90% rule. And this rule basically is, okay, listen, let's strive for excellence. Here's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about not striving for excellence. Okay, I'm just not saying not striving for being perfect, right? So if you're striving for excellence, he talked about the 90% rule. If something is 90% complete and you're happy with it, it's not perfect, it's 90% complete, chances are that's the sweet spot. Where, now here's what I mean by sweet spot. Sweet spot meaning you're happy with the result and you're happy that it got done and it's in excellence. It might not be that horizon line like I talked about, many videos ago, that horizon line that, the horizon's something that's where the sky meets the ground or the sky meets the water. You never actually get there. You can see it, but that's a lot of that's perfection in our brains. We never get to the horizon line. So 90% ends up being your 100%. Okay, once again, I'm saying this several different ways, and I'm not saying do not strive to be 100% complete. I'm just saying that 90% rule is that sweet spot. And hopefully, those of you that are listening to this or watching this are going, oh, okay. There's a little bit of pressure off of me now. Okay, and I think that there's that good stress, that you stress that's on your body that you put on your performance. I think that's key. Okay, but don't let it eat your lunch and eat your future and eat your joy and your happiness if you're trying to strive for perfection, right? So let's be principled. Let's create those standards. Let's create our a benefit out of our adversity. Let's have those boundaries. Let's be principled, right? And think about what other principles that have helped you become successful and what are those? And let's be consistent with those. So then you actually have joy in your life and you're striving for that excellence. Does that make sense? So hopefully this helps you arrive at your next intended destination, healthy, wealthy, and happy.